Hello and welcome. My name is Rachel Orlansky, and I'm the Vice President of Student Affairs here at UAGC. I will be the host of this session, Creativity Across the Curriculum. By joining us today, you acknowledge that this session is being recorded and will be shared with TLC-related materials. Microphones will be muted for this presentation, but we encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat. Also, we've enabled live transcription. If you would like to use it, click the live transcription button at the bottom of your Zoom window. On this panel today, we have three distinguished speakers from the University of Arizona. Dr. Caleb Simmons, the Executive Director of Online Education, who oversees Arizona Online, was scheduled to be here today, but had a last-minute scheduling conflict. Who we do have here today, though, is Dr. Melody J. Buckner, the Associate Vice Provost for Digital Learning and Online Initiatives at the University Center for Assessment, Teaching, and Technology, which is their central teaching and learning center serving all 19 colleges at the University of Arizona. We also have Dr. Matthew Romanoski, Director of Instructional Design at the University Center for Assessment, Teaching, and Technology, and Alejandro Gonzalez, Lead Adobe Specialist in the University Center for Assessment, Teaching, and Technology. Now I'm pleased to send it over to you, Dr. Buckner. Take it away.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Rachel. I appreciate that introduction. And I welcome everyone to this virtual webinar. I'm really excited to be sharing this topic. It's really close to my heart. It's what I've done a lot of research on. I'm actually doing some current research in this area, and I want to share that with you. I'm really happy to have both Matt and Alex with me today. So we're going to start by just kind of introducing ourselves. Well, maybe. There we go. So this is me. And my background is kind of diverse. My first degree is in architecture, and I was a 3D animator back in the 80s, where we really had to program a lot of our 3D animations. So I have kind of this computer science background along with the creative side, which is why I really am passionate about creativity across the curriculum, because I can really see it in, interfacing with everything. My master's degree is in educational technology. So this was later in my life, and I really kind of went away from design, had a family, looked for ways to come back into the academy, and fell into instructional technologies and instructional design, which I really found my passion and my peeps in this area, and have really flourished with this. Finally, when I was an instructional designer here at the University of Arizona, I did something crazy. I got my PhD. I think I actually stumbled into my PhD because I'm a lifelong learner, and there was a program that I just really enjoyed the classes. It was funny because I got through my classwork and I was like still wanting to take classes, and they're like, no, it's time for you to do your dissertation and graduate. And so I actually pushed through that part of the process and finished my PhD in 2015. Information about me can actually be found pretty easily, melodybuckner.com. You'll find out more about me than you'll ever want to know on that page. That page was created during my dissertation process, and I haven't updated it, so it's a little outdated, but it really gives you a foundation for who I am and how I came up through the academy. As Rachel was saying, we are from the Central Teaching and Learning Unit at the University of Arizona, and ucat.arizona.edu is where you can find information not only about us, but also about our center. And then, as always, I give you my LinkedIn if you want to connect with me. I always love connecting with people. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt so he can introduce himself.
Thank you, Melody. Hi, Matt Romanoski, Director of Instructional Design, as has been mentioned. And I have a kind of very diverse path to this position as well. Like Melody, I have the ABOR Triple Crown in that all three of my degrees come from the three flagship state universities. Got my bachelor in education, majoring in history from the University of Arizona. So I'm at heart a Wildcat. Spent about 10 years teaching social studies at a local high school, coaching football and track there. got my master's degree in the same program that Melody got hers in, actually, education technology through Northern Arizona University. And that kind of led me away from K-12 and into higher education, and eventually to Melody's team, where much like her, I really found my people in instructional design. And then while working in that office, I decided to pursue a EDD at ASU in leadership and innovation. And while my research started out focusing on building community and instructor presence in online courses, as I moved into more of a leadership role as a result of the pandemic, I've been looking more at how to build community and culture in remote with remote instructional design teams. So it's been something I've been trying to build. And information about my team and my bio is available on our UCAT websites. And I do have a LinkedIn. If you type in Matt Romanoski, I'm sure it will pop up in anywhere you search in LinkedIn. So, and then I will go ahead and pass it on to Alex.
Would you mind changing it to my slide, or is it being slow for
Right,
me?
there we go. Thank you.
I mean, I think Matt had a much nicer picture, but so I'm Alex Gonzalez. I have a little less mustache than in that picture, but it's still me. And I'm the lead Adobe specialist here at UCAT. And my team's mission is to increase digital literacy on campus, which has, I think, kind of always been my career trajectory. As you can see, I never left the university. All three of my degrees are from there, and I'm sure I'll get my doctorate here as well, which I'm excited to do. But I spent my past almost 12 years teaching high school photography. And I always taught it as a skill, a passion, and a great hobby. But I never worried if my students were going to be professional photographers or not, because it was teaching them career skills, creative problem solving, and trying to see if they had a creative passion for something. So I ended up with a very uncommon skill set of fine arts, technology, and teaching, which landed me as the Adobe specialist here on campus. So I've been having a really great time helping others with Creative Cloud, with their creative projects, in all sorts of colleges and situations. And I'm just here to share a little bit about me and my team and what we do here. You can learn about the Adobe team at adobe.arizona.edu. Of course, there's that UCAT site again. I do have a LinkedIn. I'm pretty terrible at it, but if you find me and add me, I'll add you in a month or two. But thanks for having me here, and I'm excited to share our passion for creativity.
Thanks, Alex, and thanks, Matt. So I wanted to start by just going over what I really hope you can get out of this session today. As an instructional designer, I always like to post the learning outcomes and hope that you will identify with them. So the first thing that I want you to be able to do is just to be able to identify and maybe talk a little bit about the productive and creative technologies that are out there for our faculty and our students. Then describe some strategies to apply these technologies in your course or in your classroom. I also want authentic assessment to be something that you will be able to explain. And we're also going to be able to talk about how we use authentic assessment in our own practices. And then finally, because it's the big buzzword, how will AI impact these ideas? And at this point in the webinar, I'm actually going to send us to a Padlet, and I am going to get some ideas from everybody there. So I do want you to engage in the conversation around AI, because it is something that's new and it's impacting everybody in so many different ways that I think it's great to have a conversation around it instead of just having people talk about it. So with that, I'm going to start off kind of why I got interested in this and why it's become kind of a passion for me. So why is it important to use both productive and creative applications across the curriculum? And this really hit me. You know, have been an instructional designer. I was a dean. I'm now, you know, one of the leads over the Teaching and Learning Center. So student success is really important to me. And the first thing is being able to, when you hit that first year out of school, being really prepared to walk into a workplace and feel like you have the confidence as a graduate to take on anything that's thrown at you. And I'm going to start by talking about my son. And he's the one that's kind of inspired me to go into this. This is a picture of him at graduation. He was he did okay in college. He was on the 6-year plan. And so he didn't struggle in college, but I think he had several different pathways. And when he finally found, he was an engineering major, and then he was a business major, and then he found retail and consumer science, which is where he really found his people. And in that program, he started being exposed to the Microsoft products and the Adobe Creative Cloud products, which we do have available to all of our students. And he really thought this was a great way to go in, because what he wanted to do was to go into sales. So he thought it was a great communication tool, and he started really experimenting a lot with Adobe. He also went pretty deep into Microsoft Excel, because that was a product that he felt he was going to be using in his career. So he took classes that really gave him a deeper dive into these productive and creative technologies. He worked with our Adobe team. He actually worked right with Adobe. He was a preceptor for a class where he actually taught Excel. So he became not only the person that ingests the knowledge, but he became a teacher of the knowledge. And I think this was a step that we sometimes need to push our students into doing. His results was when he graduated, and he graduated in December. So he wasn't on that regular, traditional graduate in May and get a job in the summer. He got 5 job offers from 5 different areas of the industry, and he turned them all down. I was like, oh my gosh, what have you done? But he wanted to be in a certain industry, and he's a cyclist. He's an athlete, and he wanted to be in the cycling industry. And he ended up getting a job with Trek Bikes and working in their corporate office for 3 years. And when I flew up to see him, and he's in Madison, Wisconsin, it was a really small town. And as I was getting off the plane, and one of the ladies who was working there, she goes, oh, are you Bryce Buckner's mom? And I was like, oh my gosh, what? She saw my name. She was like a ticketing agent. And I'm like, yes. And she goes, I remember, I work for Trek as well. And I said, oh, she goes, I remember when Bryce came and he was interviewing. And she goes, one of the things we were most blown away with was how good he was with all of these technologies. He really wowed us with his presentation skills. He wowed us with his expertise in knowing the software. One thing that Bryce said that he did not have at our university was Microsoft Teams. And we're going to talk about that. That is something that has been newly added since he graduated, because he's been out of school for a while. And he said he had to learn that on the fly. And it wasn't that it was hard for him, but he said, I really wish I would have had that in my university experience. Then I could have come in and really hit the ground running. He goes, I felt like I didn't have a little bit of an advantage there. So doing this creativity and productivity across the curriculum, no matter what students are in, allows them to be career ready, allows them to have that creative edge. It also prepares them to learn other technologies. So if you learn one thing, then you're not afraid to learn another thing. You'll kind of dive in. So with that, that's kind of the foundation of this whole talk. And so I just wanted to start out with a story. So let's also talk a little bit about what this prompted me to go into, which was some original research that I'm doing right now. And I'm exploring the possible impact access to creative and professional software application has on an undergraduate student population. I've gone through the IRB, which is the Internal Review Board. So I'm actually have launched this study. I launched it last year. I'm starting with our freshmen and carrying it all the way through until their first year after they graduate. And I'm asking some questions about how does access to creative and professional software impact student engagement in the undergraduate courses, career placement and mobility in the job market, and influence of creative literacy and digital literacy. I have put, I'm not going to go to it for the sake of time, but there is the little tiny URL. If you actually want to go, you can go ahead and take the survey, because I will see about the time that this is being taken, and I'll be able to extract that from my my students that are doing that. But you can kind of read about the study that I'm doing, and you can actually take the survey to give me some feedback on that. So that's kind of what prompted me to actually do some original research. It is a 7-year-long study. So I am going to be really looking at how students are coming through their college career and how that's making an impact on them, once they leave and go into their career. If anyone's interested in exploring this more with me, I am interested in collaborations. And so please reach out to me. I think you can actually put your information if you go in and take the survey. Okay. So with that, Alex, I'm going to have you talk about the paid and free software applications. So Alex, take it away.
Sure. So I'm obviously going to have a small bias here, or a major bias, where I see a lot of value in the professional software out there. But that being said, when my team visits classrooms, runs workshops, holds institutes, and does consultations, we always encourage knowing your options. As a photography teacher, I always absorb the quote by I forgot his name. He was a war photographer. When he was asked, "What's the best camera is the one you have on you." So this idea that it's better to make something with what's available than to make nothing at all, right? So it opened up Microsoft Paint if that's all you have. But while there are a ton of pretty good to great to okay free things, for example, Google Image Processor versus Photoshop, Inkscape versus Adobe Illustrator, then there's Blender and Canva, and Adobe has Express and Rush, which are free products that can be opened up with some more features if you have a license. But what we find more and more is that I don't mean to phrase it, almost it's probably not the best to list Google Image Processor as one of your skills on your resume compared to listing Photoshop, that is the professional and industry standard software. So what we believe is that giving students the exposure to what is being used in the real world will give them a competitive edge in their career journey, while we encourage creativity in any way. So what the whole reason my team exists is to provide that exposure, to develop their digital literacy, and to also, oh, okay, I was like, our slides are going rogue.
No, sorry.
It's okay. And to encourage faculty to put digital literacy as a core part of their classroom experience for students. So some of the things that we've done on campus is develop like an Adobe Fellows program, so that there's this feeling of scaffolding and support. So any people that complete our 2-week institute that is dedicated to digital literacy, getting competency with 6 different Adobe programs, writing curriculum, and creating artifacts, they're invited to be fellows and be a resource to their peers and colleagues to help them, number one, see that the goal's not that far away, the execution is highly possible, but even more importantly, to see the value of using these tools themselves and exposing their students to these tools, just like Melody's story about her son Bryce. So we believe that this technology ultimately is an incredibly high demand and an invaluable career skill for our students.
Thanks, Alex. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the production technologies that we encourage faculty to use?
Of course. So I said Adobe Creative Cloud, which is easy to say, but it's also Illustrator, Photoshop, Premiere Pro, InDesign, Dreamweaver, Substance 3D. It's a suite of 20 applications. It also includes Adobe Stock, so this huge stock library that is becoming more and more AI filled with AI images, but you can filter them out if you don't want them. And then web-based apps like Express and the podcasting beta that's coming out. So Adobe Creative Cloud is a big industry one. Melody spoke about Microsoft. Of course, I think that's a given for all of us, but we can't ignore the value of a strong competency or even mastery, if you can claim to have that in a Microsoft product. Another common production technology is some form of communication or workplace productivity tool like Teams or Slack or Discord. And then some buzzwords we might hear like CRM or project management. For example, in UCAT, we use Monday.com to manage and track projects. And our customer relationship manager, which I don't interface with very much, that we use is Salesforce, which is often an entire platform for websites, for emailing, for sales, and things like that. So these are all things that are high value exposure for students, and often they might not see until they start a career, and then they're already behind. They need to spend time learning instead of making. So those are some of the technologies.
Yeah, and I think it's really important for us to work with our faculty, our departments, and our colleges in pushing that these technologies are available to them to help students. Salesforce is huge, but not a whole lot of students get exposure to that unless they're in a business college. I don't know how we could push that across the curriculum, but I do think that there are ways, because it's being distributed across our campus and we're all having to engage with it. So just getting our students to think about project management tools, customer relationship management tools, along with the communication, production, and creative tools are really important. Matt, would you like to talk about the educational technologies that we use and how we implement those in our curriculum?
Yeah, sure. So, as I mentioned in my introduction, I'm very interested in establishing and building community in online classrooms. A two-time fully online program graduate, I know it's very important, and I still am kind of amazed at how some of the connections I made in there. I'm still very close with those people, and I've never met them in person. So, some of the ways we try to build that community, VoiceThread, interactive discussion tool, but if you've never used VoiceThread, it's so much more robust than that. You can build out presentations through it. We have an instructional designer who built like a virtual museum walk through it, and then students could comment on the pieces that they selected for their art gallery. Very interactive in that way. Same Padlet, interactive sticky note type tool, Flipgrid. Kind of like VoiceThread, probably more how people conceive of VoiceThread, and that's just that short video engagement. And then Top Hat is, I was actually asked to come to a meeting yesterday because Top Hat has been selected as our enterprise for in-class polling essentially for students, and I am very excited about the possibility of what Top Hat can do beyond that. I just learned this yesterday, and so I actually had a meeting with my ID team leaders. So we're going to meet with these folks and figure out ways to engage our students even more with this new tool. Perusal, social annotating tool. And then the whole Google suite, just very imperative to collaborating online, doing group projects, things like that. So those are all ways we try to integrate, and to even backstep a little further. I don't do much designing anymore, but when Alex's predecessor was at the university, we worked to develop some projects in our general education classes that allowed the students to learn an Adobe skill. And so sometimes we have those students who say, oh, what does this gen ed mean to me, especially in the Arizona online where we have adult learners who are already in the field they're going to be in. I'm like, okay, well, maybe the content isn't something that means something to your job, but we'll get you out of here with at least one marketable skill that you can use. And so we try to work very closely with our partners within the unit to find ways to engage students with these technologies.
Thanks.
And I should add, my IDs are way more creative than me, so they come up with some really cool ways to use this stuff.
Another thing and the reason that I kind of highlighted these educational technologies, and I kind of asked this to Top Hat yesterday, is can any of these educational technologies actually go into to a student's first job? I mean, a lot of these are available. Some of them have free versions. And I think if we get our students, and especially Matt, what you were talking about with our adult students that are maybe already in a job and they're now coming back and getting their degree, and they're exposed to something like Top Hat or Perusal or Padlet, and they get them to critically think about, I'm wondering if I could use this in my job. I know it's an educational technology, but it might benefit me and my team at work to use this in a creative way. So it's not only creativity across the curriculum, but it's getting our students to think critically about how they might use the technologies that they have become familiar with in their job, wherever they are. I actually asked Top Hat this yesterday. I said, do you have businesses that use your application? Their response to me was no. However, she did say that they use it in their office for doing some things. So that got me to thinking that even though it's not their target audience, it still has application that can be used beyond the classroom. And to get our students to think a little bit about that kind of excites me, because it takes them in new directions and maybe gets their employer to say, wow, this person is really learning a lot in their educational program. So I wanted to talk a little bit about strategies for technologies, and why is creativity important? Why is finding passion critical to success? And is video quality really important to achieving the overarching outcomes? So I have two of my best people here. Matt and Alex, do you want to take one of these questions, and then I will take the one that's left over? So who wants to go first and answer one of these questions?
I'll take the creativity one. I think
Perfect.
That's maybe a given. But so as someone with two fine arts degrees and who taught photography for 11 years, I obviously have a special place in my heart for creativity. And I think it's fair to say that we start our educational experience with tons of creativity and finish with very little, where creativity becomes an elective or a treat, or for people who are artists. But we believe creativity is for everyone and has a role in every class. So by bringing creativity into the curriculum again, you can challenge students to process their learning in a different way and communicate in different modes. So, for example, like just taking a traditional assignment, like a reading response, and instead of having them do a summary or a quiz, having them use Express or Canva to create an infographic with their 5 biggest takeaways. So kind of turn it into this visual assignment that also has a different kind of accountability, because it's being consumed in a new way. Or taking an essay and turning it into a podcast or a short video. Just flipping traditional assignments to challenge students in a different way, grow their digital literacy, and really create work with a personal connection. So bringing this in really any classroom, my team serves mostly not the fine arts and film and TV programs. They don't actually need us. They're already doing it. But so, challenging these students to create a personal connection, but also develop these in-demand digital literacy skills, which, just for clarity, to me, digital literacy is the ability to consume media, which we're all pretty amazing at, to critique media, which 50-50, and then to also create it. So to really have those 3 abilities, will give them in-demand skills to think differently, creative problem solving, and grapple with technology in a different way. So what my team has done to try and increase this, because we can't just say, go, please use Adobe, or please more creativity. We developed a 2-week institute, which I spoke about for a second, where we take 15 to 20 faculty and we spend 2 weeks with them, each day exploring a different modality or a different program. And each day we spend 1 to 2 hours workshopping, and then they spend 3 to 4 hours creating, guided or unguided. At the end of each week, they have to produce an artifact from each day, but we also ask them to rewrite or create a new activity, project, or assessment that is centered with digital literacy. And from that program, we're able to ease the anxiety, to demystify the software, because it's can be scary, but when somebody goes and shows you how to go and get something done, it kind of opens up possibilities. And then at the end of that, our team does classroom visits, and we say, hey, if you want to do a video project, but you don't want to teach the video software, we'll come in and do it for you. It's our favorite part anyway. I love going and teaching and not having a grade book. What a treat. But so we try our best to bring creativity back, but to also not increase the workload for our faculty, so that they can be empowered and hopefully motivated. So that's I think everything I have to say for that for now.
And Alex and I actually teach a class together called Introduction to Adobe Creative Cloud. It's a fully online class. And so this, lends itself to Alex and I creating videos and uploading them for students to go through. We go to outside resources, and we also do them ourselves. And I think that's really important, so that students can, in their own time, at their own pace, learn these technologies and actually have videos to go back to. Because sometimes you'll be working on a project and you'll get it done, and then you'll step away from that technology. But then 2 weeks later, or a month later, or maybe 6 months later, someone asks you to do something in that technology, and you're like, okay, wait, I don't remember how to do something. And to be able to have those online resources is really, really important. And I love teaching with Alex. He's such a great teacher. And I really find that our students benefit from doing a deeper dive into the Adobe products. We teach it through a rhetoric lens, so we're teaching communication skills, because I think we're living in a multimodal world. So when students graduate, or if they're already in a job, being able to demonstrate that I can communicate not only verbally, not only written, but also graphically or creatively. And we're going to talk about AI in a little bit. And this is allowing people who don't feel like they have the creative chops to actually dive in and create some things. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But before we do that, Matt, could you take one of these questions?
Sure. I know the video question was something that Caleb was doing some research around, but I've had some experience with that one too. So I think I'll take a shot at that. Okay. And I think the answer to this is probably something that we find a lot in education is it depends. In some cases, high quality video is very important to achieving those outcomes. If you're doing a lab video and you need to be sure that you can get good lighting on something and really have details come out in the video, that certainly is very important. But then I also think, to something Alex said earlier in the presentation, that the best camera to have is the one you have. And in my experience with doing research on instructor presence, having some more informal videos that you shoot yourself that shows your human side can help students establish a connection with you. If you're taking a video and your dog walks past you in the background, or they hear a kid yell in the background, it's like, okay, that instructor is human, that he or she doesn't exist just in a lecture room with a screen behind him. So it really can depend. I think the thing that I have heard the most from the feedback we've gotten from our students is that while video can be important, the thing that's actually most important is the audio that comes with it. As long as the audio is good, the images are less important, unless, like I said, there's something that you need to be sure you're getting those details in high resolution, maybe something for an art class or a hard science class that is really digging in on the makeup of a cell or something like that. But definitely there is value in having the lower quality, maybe not, all cameras have really great quality these days, but lower produced videos that kind of allow you to connect with your students in a more human way.
Okay, That's great. And thank you for taking that, because that was the question Caleb was going to be talking about today, because he is doing some original research with that. And I have seen some of the results of that. And I think you're right on target with that. So I think I got the easiest one, which is, why is finding passion critical to success? Which I think everybody would be like, duh. As long as you're, when you find your passion in life, you never feel like you work a day in your life. And that's how I've always felt about every kind of career that I've had, and I've had several. And I think it's talking to students about that. And whether it's learning a productivity tool, or learning to program, or learning a creative tool, or learning how to think critically, inspiring your students through your own passion can really turn a student's life around. And sometimes I'm teaching a gen ed class right now, and it's freshmen, your traditional freshmen that are 18 years old, and they seem so young. And I have them in my class, and I'm talking to them, and I'm trying to get them to discover their own passion, because luckily that's kind of what this class is about. But I think even as we go into other classes, I know I've taught 400 level classes, and I've taught fully online. And I really like to use those discussions to inspire my students to think deeper, not only about the content that we're covering now, but how they can apply that to their lives. My research is around digital storytelling, and I really think it's important for students to reflect back on where they are right now, reflect on where they're learning, and then think about where they can go with that. And sometimes we tend to go through the motions of just checking the box. Yes, I've learned this, I can go on. But I think we need to inspire students to become lifelong learners. So this is just the start of your learning, or maybe it's the middle of your learning, but there's so much more that's out there. And I think that it goes back to, with my PhD program. And I always tell this to people when they say, should I get a PhD? And I'm like, well, one, do you like to learn? Two, are you curious about what you're going into? Three, will it keep you up at night because you're so curious about it? Because you're going to have a lot of late nights of researching and writing if you're going into a PhD program. So I think you need to help people discover their passion. And I think you can do that through some of these strategies with technology. Sometimes I think technologies are the back door to allow us to come into someone's mind without preconceived ideas. Okay, so those are just some strategies for how we think about taking technologies into our courses. I did want to talk a little bit about authentic assessment, and I think a lot of people are really nervous these days around AI. And Alex was talking about how how you can take assessments to a different level of them not just writing, but maybe creating infographics or creating original work. And I think that's a little harder to do with AI, although I have a feeling it's going to get easier and easier. But when I think about AI and authentic assessment, I think that artificial assessment is not, or artificial intelligence is not authentic intelligence, and it's not emotional intelligence either. So I think there's so much that plays into this. And if you go to my website and you go to the study abroad, I was really looking at students who were in study abroad programs and how they would come back from their experience. And I would say, so how were you assessed? How were you graded? And they would like lose all their excitement about telling me about their study abroad program. And they would say, oh, we had to do a paper, we had to write research, or, yeah, we had to do a presentation. But, I just saw all the joy like drained from them when they had come in and they were telling me about the rich experience they had had in their study abroad program. And I thought, well, what if we were to create a digital storytelling opportunity for them to really tell about their whole experience? And if you go to my website, there's a great rubric that I did. It's a 4-year dedication to this rubric. So that's why I'm saying you really need to have a passion for something. if you're doing the PhD. But there's a really good rubric in there about how to assess digital materials, because a lot of faculty have some doubts about how they would go about evaluating it, because it can be very subjective. So there's some good things to think about in there. Alex, do you want to talk about your Spanish traditional short story assignment?
Sure. So this was, well, it's not my assignment, but it's actually one of our Adobe fellows who went to our first institute, and it's really great to see the follow through from her, because she was one of the professors who had a fair amount of anxiety about the technology, and to see her go all in to ask her students to create a digital literacy kind of centered assignment is really exciting. So what her class is doing, and I came in and spent a day with them for this, they were asked to write the Spanish short stories, but the final destination for them is to go onto an Express web page, so Adobe Express lets you create graphics, videos, audio online, and it also has a really great web page builder that is just highly visual, and it's just top to bottom. So while we were talking about, okay, how can I make this web page visually enticing and have it enhance my story with images and links and text styling, we also thought, because every story had these kind of fantastical characters, we added an element of using generative AI, in this case, the Adobe Firefly generative AI, so firefly.adobe.com. And we had students trying to create a representation of their characters, which was really fun to see this kind of visualization. So for example, someone had a story about a ghost sheriff. So we spent time typing ghost sheriff. We're like, ghost cowboy, sheriff badge, desert, and kind of exploring, how can I get what I want? And it's like, oh, let's add a reference image so it has style. And it was this really fun way of kind of interacting with AI in a really just creative way, right? There's no ethical dilemma about what was happening there, because you were taking your original idea and getting help to visualize it, which is one of my favorite uses of AI, is sort of for ideation and then completion. But so this is happening right now, and the end goal is to compile all of these visual narratives into a little zine to see together. So I'm really excited to see where it ends up. But the students were already having a lot of fun. We were together, just great to see.
That sounds really exciting. I can't wait to see the final product of that. So this is kind of, our dive a little bit into authentic assessment. Now I'm going to kind of, if you think about that, you think about what we've talked about with productivity and creative applications across the curriculum, and we've talked about authentic assessment. Now I kind of want to get you involved. So I've given you two different ways. You can either type in the chat and answer some of these questions, or you can go to the Padlet. And the Padlet's kind of fun because you can keep that. The chat kind of goes away. But if you want to post some ideas in Padlet, then we can keep that going and we can continue the conversation once we're done with this session. But what I want you to think about as learners in this session, and please contribute because I'm really interested to know, is how will AI impact the classroom, both online and face-to-face? And how can we prepare our students to utilize AI in the academic world and beyond? And I'm really interested to see what you're thinking about in both areas. And then what do you think are the challenges and the opportunities we are going to encounter with AI that's now a part of not only our academic lives, but our regular lives? And it's actually going to become part of our culture. When I look around, my son recently moved to Phoenix, and I was up there the other day, and we were walking in a parking lot, and here comes one of those driverless cars. I'm like, oh my, this is actually going to become part of, just what's around us. And so how do you think this is really going to impact our students as they go out into the world. So I don't know if we have anything in the chat yet, or if we have anything on the Padlet, because I can't see it. So can someone help me out with that?
Nothing in chat yet.
Nothing in chat. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that with you to think about. I also we only have about 15 minutes left. So I want you to also put in chat or on the Padlet, what are some takeaways that you might be able to implement something that we've talked about today? Whenever I go to a conference, I always have so much information that's coming at me, and I try to do a little reflection at the end of each day to think about what is one or two things I could take away with me and actually put it back into my life. Because you go to a conference or you attend one of these webinars and you go to the mountaintop and you're like, wow, this is so great. And then you have to go back to your job and you have 10 million emails coming at you and everything's coming, faster than you can really deflect it. And so I want to give you just a little bit of time to think about and maybe write them down. If you want to put them in the chat, that's great. If you want to put them on the Padlet, that's great. Maybe even better, you just grab a piece of paper right by you and you write down something, that one or two things that you might want to implement in your either academic world or in your personal world. And also, this is a time for questions. So if you have any questions for any of us, this would be the time to post them in the chat, or I think there's another way to post them in the platform that we're broadcasting from today.
I want to note too, Melody, that we did get a Q&A from someone who asked about sharing the presentation, and that has been sent to the conference staff, and they will share that out at the end of the session. And then we have a comment in the chat from Elena. I think it's really telling the way that AI was a sticking point for both the WGA and SAG-AFTRA in terms of their contract negotiations. One of the challenges is ensuring the ethical use of AI and respecting the creativity of the people whose work is being used to train the AI.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I don't know how we are going to deal with that on all levels. Because as you know, AI is large language models. It's not like you're just searching. It's not like you can cite it. I've almost thought of AI, because people go, oh, well, you can just cite AI. I'm like, no, you can't really cite AI because it's scraping from so many different things. It's kind of like your brain. It's not like citing here and citing there. It's just taking a bunch of information and putting it together. And I don't think it's a good thing to cite AI. I've kind of, I guess, think about AI as a tutor. So if I were to go to the tutoring center at my institution and I were to have a tutor help me write a paper, would I actually cite that tutor on my final work? Probably not. And so that's how I kind of see AI, is it's this tutor. It's a good place to go get some help, but it's certainly not the end result. And I think we're going to run into a lot of issues with, especially with the art side, about where did this art come from? How was it constructed? And I think that's something that legally is going to face a lot of challenges in the future. Do we have any other questions? I don't know if they can come on mic. I don't know if they're allowed to do that or not, but I would be open to that if they can.
There's a few comments on the Padlet. Do you want me to read any of them?
Sure.
So someone said that AI can help students with things like tone and clarity in their writing.
Yes.
And someone said the challenge of academic integrity. We want them to utilize AI as an innovation to help them formulate ideas, but not do the work for them. And the final one is that they recently heard on a podcast that the future of AI is that it won't replace you, but someone who uses it will, which I've heard that too. You're not going to be replaced by AI, but someone who knows how to use it will replace you.
I've heard that too. Oh, thanks for sharing those. Those are really good insights. Yeah.